Well, the conversation on the Twitter jabs continues in regard to the fact that Cabinet on Tuesday went ahead to approve the implementation of the 21st East African Community Summit Directive in Uganda to adopt Kiswahili as an official language of the community. Now, the Cabinet decision, Uganda says, is in line with the directive of the 21st East African Community Summit that was held on February 2021 that directed the expedition of the implementation of Kiswahili, English and French as the official languages of the bloc. And currently, Cabinet did go ahead, and these highlights were actually made by Mr. Chris Baryomusi, and he said even while they roll it out, it will first come out in primary and secondary schools, and of course it will also be examinable. So that is where very many people did have reactions on social media. But joining me this morning is none other than Mr. Innocent Agume, and he is an educationist and a Swahili scholar, and actually most of his books, like I highlighted in the Twitter Jabs Part 1, most of his books are currently being used in both the primary and secondary schools to actually promote and teach Kiswahili. Habari za asubuhi, Mr. Innocent Agume.
Salama sana, habari yako?
Niko sawa. Is my Kiswahili good?
Very perfect.
Would you grade me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Wapendwa watazamaji na wasikilizaji wa CTV, natumai mko salama na hamna tatizo lolote popote pale mlipo. Ni furaha yangu CTV kuwa wenyeji wangu asubuhi hii.
Okay.
Na tuzungumzie swala muhimu la Kiswahili, usipepese mboni.
I don't want my friend Dennis in the control room to think that we are talking about him. So let's translate this, what you have said.
Usipepese, as CTV slogan, don't blink.
Don't blink. Usipepese.
Usipepese mboni.
Usipepese. I'm going to go back for my school fees
yes.
in my primary school. Okay, yeah. So Mr. Innocent Agume, what are your sentiments on Uganda finally adopting Kiswahili as the second official language?
Thank you very much. Actually, before I go into sentiments,
yes,
I would like Ugandans to first of all concur with me that Cabinet adopting the use of Kiswahili in Uganda, this has been the policy pronouncements, the language policy pronouncements in a number of policy documents here in Uganda. If I can take you, for example, to the 1995 Constitution as amended in 2005, the Article 6, Clause 2 clearly stipulates how Kiswahili is a second official language of Uganda. If I take you to the 1992 government white paper on education reforms, it clearly stipulates how Kiswahili should be actually taught in all the institutions of learning. I can even take you as well to the East African Community Treaty, the Article 137, how it clearly also postulates that Kiswahili is the lingua franca of the East African community. So in a number of documents and other protocols of which Uganda is a party that it has signed. So the Cabinet coming up to adopt and clearly stated that it is now a compulsory subject. To some people it may not be a surprise, most especially those who have been following a number of these pronouncements.
Yes.
And actually it has been long overdue. But all in all, as Swahili fraternity in Uganda, we congratulate the government to have reached such a milestone to clearly come out and pronounce that Kiswahili should be taught. Yes. Reason being, the fact that now we are seeing the mainstreaming of the Kiswahili policy coming into being prioritized, we say that this is the right time, and we are very happy as the Swahili fraternity that here we are. And I think if the government now becomes consistent with such a policy and looks at implementation, I think Uganda, we are going to be a Swahili-speaking country, a serious Swahili-speaking country.
Okay, so we understand that some schools have actually already introduced Kiswahili, of course, in terms of having it as an optional subject, especially when it comes to secondary school going children. So would you say for the students that have already offered it, how have they benefited from it?
Number one, this has been actually a motivation to most of the Swahili scholars. The reason is that we have actually seen the variation in our subject field. And we are now, it has actually also acted as a motivator to these other people who almost had a negative attitude towards the Swahili, offering Swahili at different levels of education. And you know, Swahili is not actually only taught at primary and secondary. We have technical and vocational institutes. They're also learning Swahili, journalism, whatever. So Kiswahili, by this time, we think and we believe that it has gained momentum. And for the scholars who have already been studying it, so it's their right time now to jubilate and know that the main reason is that they are now envisioning a lot of opportunities ahead of them as far as their subject is concerned.
Okay, so let's take a look at it in terms of significance. Would you say it is a plus or minus, especially when it comes to making it compulsory in both primary and secondary schools?
In fact, it is not only a plus, but a bold plus. Number one, if, for example, we look at the teachers who have already qualified, and Uganda actually has a number of teachers who are just on streets, not employed. So we hope now these people are going to get employed. They're going to get employed, and that is, of course, an economic development as far as earning is concerned. When we look at the authors, personally, I'm an author.
Yes.
I've authored a number of Swahili titles, and so we think we are going to have an action-packed engagement as far as development of curriculum support materials is concerned, and of which I think it's a great opportunity. Initially, the writing industry, as far as Swahili is concerned, had not taken a serious, intervention in Uganda. Reason being, we never had a bigger target group, because Kiswahili has been being offered by very, very few people in schools. So, and the morale to actually bring a number of authors on board has been too low. Mm-hmm. But right now, I think my colleagues, we are going to come up and, invest a lot in writing, so which it is an opportunity. If, for example, we can also talk about the East African common market.
Yes.
It's going to be an avenue, a big avenue as far as, for example, business sector is concerned. So I think it is more than all a bold plus as far as its significance.
How about the fact, and earlier on my colleague and I read out a tweet, and some people were saying that they mostly know the Kiswahili language and it's affiliated to the military. For some, they even go ahead to say that when they hear Kiswahili, it's very traumatic for them, and it's a language they do not think Uganda should take on as an official language. What is your opinion when it comes to that?
That is actually one of the challenges that we are still facing as a country. Whenever a talk about Kiswahili, comes up, the negative attitudes that are still within, but it is actually still, it is actually a very small population that is still having such kind of mindset that Kiswahili is a language, we've heard about them, people are calling each other names, language of thieves and whatever, but I think that is an error in reasoning. That is an error in reasoning in this century. Someone to still be locked. The mind is still locked in, ancient and kind of barbaric thinking about the previous regimes, yet we are moving.
Yes.
This is the 21st century.
Absolutely.
And some people are still thinking, in such a way. So I think one of the tasks, the main tasks the government needs to do is to probably come up with mass sensitization to the public so that everyone can actually realize the need and the importance is as to why we need to learn Kiswahili.
Okay. So what are some of the key elements of the Kiswahili language that Ugandans should put into consideration?
Number one, Kiswahili should actually be looked at as one of the unifying factor, considering the heterogeneity of our country, Uganda, where we have over 45, actually, around 45 languages. So we need to stop looking at ourselves as Banyankwere, as Barugwala, as Bagandas, whatever. So we look at Kiswahili, if Kiswahili can be brought on board and probably within 10 years time to come, 20, 50 years time to come, we shall be looking at ourselves as Ugandans and not these other tribal, whichever attachments.
But that is someone's identity. Someone would argue and say, yes, I am a Ugandan, but I am a Samia. Yes, I am Ugandan, but I am a Luo, I'm a Jap, I'm a Karamajong. That is my identity, I'm a Munyankole.
That is very okay. And actually, Kiswahili coming on board, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is going to kill this other language. No. And all these are enshrined in our constitution. We have indigenous languages, and they play their specific roles, just as the official languages, do in the official capacity.
Yes.
So specifically, and actually in our education system, we currently have thematic curriculum that is, at primary 1 to primary 3, where learners are being taught in the language, the local area.
Local language.
Language. So that is it. Local language is being taught at primary. It is being taught at secondary. So if we bring up Kiswahili as an official language, as clearly stipulated in our constitution, then it will be there to play its official roles together with English. And can we now allow the local languages also to play their roles as stipulated, as enshrined in our constitution? We actually also have foreign languages on board. Chinese, we have French, and those we are saying for diplomatic purposes, let's have them. Local languages, actually I need to call them indigenous languages. Indigenous languages, these are now helping us to protect and,
to preserve our culture.
So if we can now allow them to play their role as enshrined in the constitution, then let English and Swahili also play their role in their official status.
Okay. So earlier on in your first remarks, you highlighted and you congratulated the government, and you said this was a move or an initiative that is long overdue. So why do you think it has taken government this long to finally come up with this decision of making Kiswahili an official language and introducing it to primary and secondary schools?
Yeah, I think
in your opinion,
I'm a Christian actually. And for us who believe in the Bible, they normally say that there is time for everything. And I think that's Ecclesiastes, chapter 3. So I think this is now the time for Kiswahili. It has come up. But again, taking the government too long, probably to this time, there are also some other underlying factors. Number one, I can probably cite the lack of strong political will. I'm putting that word strong. Reason being, political will has been there. And that is why we've been having the policy pronouncement, the language policy pronouncements. As I earlier said, in our constitution, the government white paper, signing of treaties and being part of a number of protocols and everything. So we've been having a political will as towards Swahili implementation, but it hasn't been strong.
Yes.
So I think now it is the time when Kiswahili is being recognized by UNESCO, as you even earlier stated it, that every 7th of July every year it will be World Kiswahili Language Day. And we are actually proud of that. Kiswahili also now, as far as the East African community is concerned, I think it has been long overdue. And concerning the political will, it has been the right time. Another issue probably I can talk about the teachers, actually, because if we can consider the recommendations in the white paper of 1992 to date, Uganda, I think, started training the primary school teachers in 2013. And our first cadres were assessed in 2014. That's when Uganda started, graduating primary school teachers in Kiswahili. So for it to take all this long, probably, of course, manpower aspect has been, it has been a key as well. But again, from 2014 to date, and every year, the primary teachers' colleges have been, graduating over 8,000 to 10,000 primary school teachers. So you can actually, even by simple mathematics, simple calculation, try to calculate, compute, and see from 2014 to date how many teachers we should be having. In fact, Uganda now, as far as primary section is concerned, can consume the teachers it wants and again export the rest to not to secondary schools, because they are not qualified to handle that level, but probably to other countries that may be needed, that may be having that challenge of lack of teachers. Yes, there are so many.
So in a way, we are killing two birds with one stone. We are not only initiating a new language, which will help students and pupils even compete favorably on a global market, but also it's creating job opportunities, especially for the Kiswahili teachers.
Exactly. That is what I earlier, told you about, that one of the opportunities is that we have plenty of teachers who are jobless. Reason being, this pronouncement, had not been, made, and our teachers, actually, most of them had already been, getting demoralized, and some had even, moved for other avenues. Some have even moved on to Dubai, Abu Dhabi, wherever. And this is a resource that Uganda should really tap and bring on board to spearhead the implementation of Swahili.
Okay.
Talking about probably another issue, another challenge could be the materials. As to why probably Uganda had to, take all this wrong. And actually, the government has not been seated. It has been, having, a number of background activities in preparation for this. The materials. The other day, we saw the curriculum specialist, primary, Dr. Arnaito Perpetua, telling us how the syllabus books are ready in schools. The government has already purchased primary Kiswahili textbooks, and they are already disseminated. They are in the field. So with materials development, I think it has also been an issue. But right now, currently, Uganda has a number of authors that can even team up and produce a number of materials to be used. Personally, in Kiswahili, I think I have over around 15 titles that are being used here in Uganda and even across the East African, states.
Okay, so Mr. Agume, I understand that this might be a good initiative, but you are an educationist, so won't you think that having two official languages would confuse not only the students, but even dignitaries at large?
I don't think that is that is right. Reason being, and I think actually Uganda is going to be having one of the best language policies compared to its counterparts,
yes,
in the East African bloc. Reason being, Uganda is one of the nations that are putting a lot of emphasis on the development of the indigenous languages. As we've seen, the thematic curriculum, the implementation at primary, the implementation at secondary. At the same time, Uganda now is, taking on the language policy, the endoglossic, bringing the indigenous languages in the curriculum, and then exoglossic as well, the foreign language. Now here, the fact that we have English. So it is implementing both of them, the endoglossic and the exoglossic language policies. But when you consider now some of our neighbors here, let's talk about an example of Tanzania. They are specifically at endoglossic. They are looking at Swahili. And that is actually why Uganda may be better as far as, a linguistic aspect is concerned than Tanzania. Because for us, we are implementing English, and at the same time, we are bringing on Kiswahili right now. I'm bringing Kiswahili in that aspect, reason being, since Uganda has a number of indigenous languages, and their roles are clearly, stipulated and as enshrined in the Constitution.
Yes.
So it may be difficult right now to pick up a language over the other one. And again, we have actually seen many people, the moment Kiswahili talk comes up, other people also stand up and talk about this other language. And then we are asking ourselves, why should you think this language, the moment Kiswahili talk comes up, the talk about this other language should also chip in? Why? Why not this other one? Why not the other one? So, and I think this is, I can actually term it as pride and prejudice, which sometimes is uncalled for. So if we can actually come on board as Ugandans and we unite and embrace Kiswahili, I think we shall move many, many more miles together as far as unity and harmony is concerned.
Okay, so in his remarks, the Minister of ICT, and that is Mr. Chris Barriomos, he did mention that not only is it going to be rolled out, but also it's going to be examined in both primary and secondary schools. And some people felt like it is too soon. If we are just introducing it, why again are we going ahead to examine the students who are just, for some they're just going to start learning it. So in your opinion, or what are your sentiments towards this subject being examined when it comes to both secondary and primary schools where it has not been?
You see, with teaching is one aspect, and assessment is also another, but they must
go hand in hand.
Go hand in hand. You can't tell me that you've taught me about something, and then you haven't ascertained whether I have, appreciated, I've adopted, and I've, retained.
Yes.
So there is no way we can teach and then we do not assess. And actual assessment doesn't only come up at the end of the cycle. Assessment is always within the process. During the teaching, assessment is taking place up to the end of the cycle. But for us, or for Kiswahili to take root in Uganda, we are actually, as the Swahili fraternity, we are recommending that let this be an examinable subject so that everyone can be serious about studying and even implementing. And even the attitudes. Yes, because You are a parent, and your daughter, who is in P4, P5, comes back home with homework.
Of Kiswahili.
And of course, your authority is at home, and they always consult you. Mommy, what's this? What about this? So it is now going to tickle your mind and say, I do not need to be challenged by this.
Yes, I need to learn the language
I need to
myself.
learn something so that so that you don't start fidgeting with the Google Translator. And actually, you fidget with the Google Translator and to give you wrong things sometimes. So you need to equip your... So what am I trying to say is that the moment an aspect of assessment is probably emphasized, everyone is going to come on board. You've seen this multiplier effect now. My daughter, my son is learning Swahili, so let me also do something so that we are all on board.
On the same ground.
Yes.
Okay, so how is Uganda's adopting of Kiswahili as an official language likely to impact her politically, social, and also economic-wise?
I think this goes back to what I had, earlier on talked about. You see, the problem that we are still having as Ugandans, let me say it, is that we still look at ourselves as Barugwara, as Bagisu.
Is that a problem? Isn't that a sense of identity?
Yes, but it is a sense of identity. But the moment you try to front, the tribal, sentiments and aspects in everything. Now there you have, killed everything. So when we talk about the economic, social, and political, bit of it, let me give you an example. In my area where I come from Ntungamo, there is a lady who came and got married. There is my neighbor, and she was from Masaka. But right now, her name, we call her Muganda. You have seen people sending their children, go to Kanyankore's shop and buy me soap. Go to Wamusoga. So why should we be, still calling ourselves in relation to our tribes and whichever? So we are looking at this aspect, because the moment I live here and go to West Nile, and I know that I'm speaking Kiswahili, there is nobody who is going to start, sidelining me as, this is from this side, let's buy from this one or that one. And this actually applies generally, even in the political fields. We've been in Uganda here. This is so and so. We shouldn't vote for him now. But the moment you see these politicians going into a specific area and they speak, some of them actually try to cram a few of lines of a few words of that specific area. The moment they cram them and they speak in that area, so you see the jubilations in the electorate.
Okay.
Reason being, there is that bond in communication. They know this one comes from this side, but hey, we can really effectively communicate. So we think that the moment Kiswahili comes on board, that is going to be one of the unifying factors. However, if at all also it is brought on board, and again, we don't do away with this kind of that tribal sentiments and aspects, like what happened in Kenya. One may actually ask me a question that, if we are saying Swahili will unite us, what about these tribal fights we saw the other time after elections in Kenya and whatever, yet they have Swahili? So those are some of the aspects
of the
concerns that we need to put a lot of emphasis on. And those are some of the few factors, but you see these are political kind of inclined issues.
Okay, so let's take a look at the fact that still Cabinet, yes, wants to make Kiswahili an official language, but also it is making it compulsory. And a section of Ugandans have gone on to say, but why are they forcing us to fully adopt to Kiswahili when we have our own languages? What is your opinion on this?
There is no imposing.
Why? Because
no,
it could as well stay optional. It has been optional in the recent years, especially in schools. So now it is being made compulsory. So people feel like, why are you forcing it down my throat?
You see, Uganda as a country, it is a signatory to the protocols. Let me, for example, look at it on a regional basis. It is a signatory to a number of protocols and treaties as far as the East African community is concerned. So one of the key aspects to put Uganda at the same footing in relation to these other East African partner states as far as Kiswahili development is concerned is to enable every Ugandan to learn Kiswahili. I'm saying to enable every Ugandan. I'm not saying to force, to enable. But the moment you start saying let it remain compulsory, let it remain optional, that means this person who has been having a negative, probably, attitude will still have to leave it. And what is the main goal? What is the main target for Uganda to bring Kiswahili on board? It may not be achieved in the long run. So I think there is no issue of imposing. It is not imposing or forcing Swahili onto people, but number one, it is enshrined in our constitution as a second official language. Number two, we are, partners in the East African community.
Yes.
And we have protocols that we have signed. So I think it's high time Ugandans need to understand and value and look at Swahili in a bigger perspective. Let's leave, for example, Uganda. Let's leave our tribes. Let's leave Uganda. Let's look at Kiswahili at a regional level. Let's look at Kiswahili at a continental level and even globally. That is...
Okay. So what are your last remarks, of course, as we wind up the conversation? What are your last remarks in regard to this particular issue?
My last remarks probably is that all Ugandans, my dear Ugandans, I think it's the time that we also need to come on board and embrace this language. And what I actually wanted to talk about was many of the Ugandans still think that Uganda hasn't, reached a level of having enough teachers. I earlier on talked about primary school teachers, that we already have the numbers we have and even the surplus that we can even, export. Concerning secondary also has the enough manpower, enough human resource to push on and implement the teaching of Swahili. A case in point, in 2020 February, under our umbrella Chakitau, the National Kiswahili Association of Uganda, we did a survey and wanted to ascertain how many teachers do we have that are not employed. So, and we were doing this on our social media platforms, on our forums, and over 7,000 teachers were not employed neither in government nor in private schools. And if, for example, now you look at, let me say, private schools, which are almost or around 10,000 in Uganda, then plus government schools, which are almost also around 4,000, 5,000 there. I don't have a specific figure, but it's within that range. And you see, for example, that only on the social media platform, we have, within a very short period, around 7,000 people have come up and say we don't have. And again, don't expect people who have been, jobless, who have been, not working to even get an opportunity to be on social media, to buy smartphones and data. So we are expecting over 10,000 plus teachers to be there awaiting the Education Service Commission, awaiting the ministry to advertise, and then they will be overwhelmed with applications.
Okay.
So we call upon the government to recruit our teachers, our Swahili teachers. They are ready to implement and push for Swahili.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Innocent Agume, for joining us this morning on Sunrise at Sea. I do not know if you would like to give the viewers with any parting sentences in Kiswahili. They will figure it out for themselves probably.
Wapendwa watazamaji na wasikilizaji wa CTV, imekuwa ni fursa kubwa sana kuwa nanyi asubuhi hii, na tunasema kwamba jifunzeni Kiswahili, pigia debe Kiswahili, ili Uganda nzima katika miaka 10 ijayo, katika miaka 20 ijayo, Uganda iwe ni nchi ambayo inazungumza Kiswahili kwa kila mtu. Usipepese. Baki kwenye CTV.
Well, I understood the fact that you said do not blink. You also highlighted, you said something in regard to years. Well, asante sana. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And that wraps up the conversation that we had for you this morning on the Twitter jabs. But as I say goodbye, where Kiswahili is actually spoken over by 200 million Africans and is widely used in countries in the Great Lakes region, in the Eastern, Central and Southern Africa, and even in the Middle East. Well, also the East African Community Summit did endorse English, Kiswahili and French as the official languages, but Uganda decided to go ahead to settle for English and Kiswahili, and that winds up what we had for you this morning. However, stay tuned, because Priva has something interesting for all movie lovers, movies as a lifestyle. Coming up next, don't blink.